I never imagined one evening could change everything I thought I knew about love. The room was full of laughter and clinking glasses, yet my world froze the moment I saw them. My husband, smiling at her, the way he once smiled at me, his hand brushing hers, fingers entwined as if the world belonged to them. My chest ached, and my heart screamed in silence. And then, without warning, words slipped from my lips, words that shocked everyone, including me. In that instant, life, love, and trust seemed fragile, breaking like glass beneath my feet. Welcome to the Untold Love, where heartfelt stories of love, heartbreak, and hope come alive. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. You're part of our journey. I still remember the first time I saw him, the way he smiled, like the world was his playground, and somehow, he had saved a little corner of it just for me. There was something gentle about him, something that made my heart slow down and my chest feel full, all at once. We met in the most ordinary way, through friends, at a quiet cafe where sunlight spilled across the wooden tables, but that ordinary moment turned extraordinary because of the way he looked at me. That look, warm and unguarded, told me without words that I was seen, truly seen, in a way I had never been before. Our love began slowly, tenderly, like the first drops of rain after a long dry season. We spent countless evenings talking about everything and nothing at all. I remember our laughter echoing down empty streets as we walked hand in hand, the world around us fading until it was just him and me. He had this way of noticing the smallest details about me, the way my fingers twitched when I was nervous, the faint crinkle near my eyes when I smiled too hard, the soft sigh I couldn't hide when I was overwhelmed. And somehow, he made me feel that every little part of me mattered. We built memories in simple moments. Sunday mornings with shared coffee, afternoons with silent walks in the park, evenings curled up on the couch, our heads leaning against each other, hearts quietly speaking in a language only we could understand. He was affectionate in ways that felt effortless, holding my hand in crowded streets, brushing a strand of hair from my face, whispering, "I love you," when I least expected it. Every gesture, no matter how small, felt like a promise that I was never alone. I believed in us. I believed that love could be this simple, this pure, and that together, we could face anything. We made plans, soft and hopeful, dreams of a little home filled with laughter, mornings filled with sunlight and shared routines, and nights filled with whispered secrets and quiet comfort. I trusted him with my heart because he had never given me a reason not to. Even in our ordinary moments, there was poetry. The way he laughed when I teased him, the way he listened when I spoke about my fears, the way he held me through storms, both literal and metaphorical. Life felt safe with him, as if his presence alone could shelter me from any pain. I didn't realize it then, but it was in those early, tender days, the stolen glances, the secret smiles, the quiet love, that the foundation of my heart was laid. And yet, even in the most perfect beginnings, there are shadows that linger quietly, unnoticed. Small doubts whispered in the back of my mind, questions I never dared to voice. But in that moment, wrapped in his warmth, I didn't care. I was in love, deeply and completely, and I believed our story would be timeless. That was the beginning of us, the start of a love that felt endless, unbreakable, though life had other plans waiting just around the corner. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Just a busy week, a stressful day, a fleeting distraction. But little by little, I began to notice things I couldn't ignore. He would laugh at his phone when I wasn't around, that same warm smile reserved only for me, now shared with someone else. Sometimes his eyes would wander, lingering longer than necessary, and I would catch a flicker of something I didn't understand, a softness in his gaze that wasn't meant for me. I tried to dismiss it, whispering to myself that I was imagining things, that my heart was simply reading shadows where there were none. Then came the subtle changes at home. The late-night messages that made him tense whenever I walked past, the hushed phone calls ending abruptly when I entered the room. I watched him carefully, searching for an explanation, but each day only layered confusion upon confusion. His laughter, once a melody that made my chest swell, now carried a note I couldn't place. My stomach churned every time he checked his phone or smiled at a notification. It was like standing in a familiar room that suddenly felt strange, like The furniture had shifted without my noticing. The more I noticed, the more my mind spun. I replayed conversations in my head, trying to find clues, trying to convince myself that I wasn't losing him. But even the smallest moments became magnified. The way he seemed distracted when we ate together, the way he sometimes brushed past me with a quick smile but no warmth, the way he lingered in front of a mirror longer than usual, adjusting his appearance before stepping out. All these small things, invisible to anyone else, screamed at me. Something was different, something was breaking. Then came the social events, the gatherings where I first felt the public shift. I saw him laughing with her, a warmth in his tone that mirrored the intimacy we once shared. I watched from a distance as he touched her hand lightly, teasing her in a way that had once been reserved only for me. My heart clenched, but I stayed silent, frozen in disbelief. I wanted to speak, to confront, but the words felt heavy on my tongue. I was caught between wanting to believe and knowing the truth might hurt more than I could bear. Night after night, I lay awake, replaying memories, questioning everything. I remembered the early days of our love, the tenderness, the care, the unwavering trust, and wondered how something so solid could feel so fragile now. My thoughts twisted between hope and fear, longing and heartbreak, a storm of emotion that left me both desperate and wary. I loved him still, but love alone couldn't make the unease disappear. Every glance, every touch, every laugh, each became a test of my courage, a reminder that nothing would ever feel entirely safe again. And yet, despite the pain and confusion, I couldn't look away. I stayed, clinging to fragments of the man I knew, trying to reconcile the husband I loved with the distance that had crept in. The cracks were small at first, almost invisible, but now they were widening, threatening to shatter the world we had built together. And deep down, I knew that a reckoning was coming, a moment where everything I thought I knew about us would be put to the ultimate test. The day everything changed came quietly, like a storm rolling in behind clear skies. It was a gathering of friends, laughter, the clinking of glasses, music that filled the corners of the room. At first, I tried to focus on the familiar faces. The easy chatter, the small comforts that reminded me of how life used to be. But then I saw them. My husband, the man I had trusted with my heart, standing close to her. And it wasn't just proximity. It was the way he looked at her, his smile softer, warmer, something I had once thought was only mine. Time seemed to slow as I watched. They laughed, leaning just a little too close, hands brushing lightly, fingers lingering longer than necessary. Every movement, every glance, carried a tenderness that cut straight through my chest. I could feel my heartbeat thundering, loud enough that I was sure everyone could hear it. My throat tightened, my hands trembled, and yet I couldn't tear my eyes away. My mind tried to rationalize it, maybe it was innocent, maybe I was overreacting, but my heart knew better. I remember the weight of the room pressing down on me. Whispers began to ripple around the edges, subtle but sharp, like tiny knives grazing my skin. Friends glanced my way, confusion and concern flickering in their eyes. My husband, unaware of my gaze, or pretending to be, continued to interact with her as though the world belonged to them. And in that moment, a strange clarity hit me. This was no accident, no fleeting attention. This was a declaration. For a heartbeat, I thought of running, of hiding somewhere safe, escaping the humiliation and heartbreak. But instead, something unexpected rose from deep within me, something fierce, unyielding, and painfully honest. I stepped forward, my voice steady though my chest ached, and spoke words I didn't even know I had in me. Words that stunned the room, that froze everyone mid-laughter, mid-breath. A silence fell, heavy and thick, and I felt eyes on me, some sympathetic, some shocked, some unsure what to make of this bold, sudden act. The words had power, not the power to mend or destroy, but the power to be heard, the power to reclaim a piece of myself I had feared lost. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I simply spoke, letting the emotion carry me, letting every heartbeat, every memory, every pang of love and betrayal flow through me. And in that instant, I realized something vital, even in the face of heartbreak. Even when trust wavers and love feels threatened, I still had a voice. I still had a choice. After that moment, the air shifted. Tension settled like dust over the room. My husband's face betrayed confusion, maybe guilt, or perhaps surprise at the strength I had shown. And her smile, if there had been any warmth before, now faltered slightly. I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief, the bitter taste of reality mingling with the clarity of self-respect. The public display that had once terrified me had become a turning point. And deep inside, I knew this was just the beginning of the reckoning, the moment where our story would no longer be dictated by assumptions or hidden feelings, but by truth. The room felt heavier after that night. The echoes of my words still lingered, twisting in the air like smoke I couldn't chase away. People avoided my gaze, some with curiosity, some with pity. My husband's face was unreadable, an expression I couldn't decipher no matter how hard I tried. I wanted to reach out, to demand answers, to understand why he had allowed things to come this far. But the questions stuck in my throat, tangled with my pride, my heartbreak, and the shock of having witnessed a version of him I had never seen before. I remember stepping into the quiet of our home later that evening, shutting the door behind me, letting the silence press against my chest. The familiar walls that had once felt warm and safe now felt alien, almost mocking. Every corner held memories of laughter and whispered promises, but now they felt hollow, shadows of a past I couldn't return to. I wandered through the rooms, touching the furniture, the photos, the small tokens of our life together, wondering when and how everything had shifted. Sleep was elusive. I lay awake, replaying the public display again and again in my mind. I questioned everything, the way he had looked at her, the laughter, the lingering touches. My heart ached with betrayal, but beneath the ache was something sharper, confusion. Could I still trust him? Could love survive this? And even if it could, would I be the same woman who had once believed in the unshakable foundation of us? I tried to reach out to friends, seeking comfort in familiar voices. Some offered support, urging me to confront him, to demand the truth. Others tried to console me with empty platitudes, reminding me that sometimes love changes or fades. Their words swirled around me like distant echoes, never quite touching the core of what I felt. What I craved was understanding, from him. From myself, from the fragile remnants of the life we had built. And then came moments of reflection, quiet fragments of clarity amid the storm. I remembered the laughter, the small acts of care, the late-night conversations, and I realized that those memories were still mine, they couldn't be taken, even if the present felt uncertain. I began to understand something vital: love isn't only about holding on, it's also about seeing the truth, facing it, and protecting your own heart, no matter how painful that might be. By the end of that week, I felt a strange shift within me. Pain still lingered, a constant hum beneath my thoughts, but so did determination. I understood that I had a choice, to surrender to heartbreak or to rise with dignity, to reclaim the pieces of myself that had been shaken but never truly broken. I didn't yet know how the story would unfold, but I knew that whatever happened next, I would face it with clarity and strength. And deep down, I sensed that the reckoning was coming, the moment where truth would surface, and hearts would be tested like never before. I was ready, in ways I hadn't expected, to meet it head-on. The day of the confrontation arrived quietly, without fanfare, but I felt the tension in my chest like a drumbeat I couldn't ignore. I asked him to meet me in a quiet corner of the city park, a place where we had shared so many early moments of laughter and whispered dreams. The irony wasn't lost on me, the same park where love had once felt effortless now felt like the stage for truth, the setting where fragile hearts would be laid bare. When he arrived, I saw the uncertainty in his eyes immediately. There was hesitation in the way he held his hands, in the way he avoided my gaze, but I also saw something else, a flicker of recognition, a sense that he knew words alone could no longer cover the cracks. I inhaled deeply, steadying my voice, though every heartbeat screamed with anticipation. "We need to be honest," I said softly, almost a whisper, but heavy with all the emotion I had carried for days. He looked at me, searching, and then, slowly, he began to speak. At first, his words were hesitant, awkward, as if the truth was difficult to shape, but gradually, it poured out, a mixture of confession, regret, and explanation. The woman I had seen him with, she wasn't what I had feared. She was a colleague, a friend, someone who had needed his support during a crisis, someone whose presence had been misinterpreted, magnified in the glare of my insecurities, and the public moment I had witnessed. I listened, letting the words wash over me, the storm inside me shifting from anger and heartbreak to a tentative understanding. But clarity didn't erase the pain, it reframed it. The cracks were real, yes. But they weren't the chasm I had feared. I felt the weight in my chest lighten slightly, replaced by a cautious hope. I spoke then, voice steady yet raw, telling him exactly how his actions, however innocent, had hurt me, how they had threatened the fragile trust that had once defined us. The conversation was long, filled with pauses, silences, and tears, mine. His, a mingling of regret and relief. But in that honest exchange, something shifted. Words that had been swallowed by fear and doubt finally found their place. Boundaries were discussed, intentions clarified, and for the first time in days, I felt a measure of control returning to my heart. By the time we left the park, the air felt different. There was still tenderness, still love, but there was also a new layer, one forged from truth, vulnerability, and the courage to confront what had been hidden. I realized that love isn't flawless, that it can bend, even tremble, but it can also endure when met with honesty and respect. As I walked away, I felt a subtle sense of liberation. The confrontation hadn't erased the past, but it had illuminated the path forward. And in that quiet clarity, I knew one thing: whatever came next, I would face it with a heart that had seen pain, understood it, and refused to be diminished by it. I had discovered strength I hadn't known I possessed, and that strength would carry me through the chapters yet to unfold. After that confrontation, the world felt different, quieter, somehow, as if a heavy fog had lifted, leaving the air clearer than before. I walked home slowly, letting each step anchor me in the present, feeling my heart still ache, but lighter than it had in weeks. The pain was still there, yes, but it had changed. It was no longer the sharp sting of betrayal, it had softened into something I could acknowledge, something that could coexist with hope. I realized, slowly, that moving forward didn't mean forgetting, it meant embracing the truth, however complicated it might be. I began noticing the small things again, the way the sunlight spilled across the living room in the morning, the quiet hum of the city beyond my window, the gentle rhythm of my own breathing. These ordinary moments, once overlooked, now felt like little reminders that life continues, that joy and love still exist even after heartbreak. I allowed myself to feel these moments fully, to let gratitude and warmth seep into the corners of my heart I had thought were broken beyond repair. I started to reconnect with myself, really reconnect. I spent evenings reading the books I had set aside, writing in journals that had been gathering dust, and walking in places that reminded me of who I was before love and trust had been tested. I remembered my dreams, my passions, the small sparks of ambition and creativity that had once defined me. And slowly, like sunlight breaking through clouds, I felt a sense of self-ownership return, a quiet power I hadn't realized I had lost. Love, I understood, isn't just about being with someone, it's about knowing your worth, your boundaries, and your heart's capacity for resilience. I forgave myself for the moments of doubt, for the nights spent questioning everything. And even for the small pangs of jealousy that had once seemed insurmountable. I forgave him too, not necessarily to forget, but to release the weight of anger that had been keeping me tied to the past. And yet, even in forgiveness, I held on to the lessons learned. I understood that clarity and honesty are the pillars of love, that courage can arise from heartbreak, and that moving forward isn't always about reconciliation, it's about survival, dignity, and hope. I began to see the beauty in life again, the small sparks of joy that exist even after pain, and I realized that my heart was capable of holding both tenderness and strength at the same time. As weeks turned into months, I felt a subtle but profound shift. I smiled more freely, laughed without hesitation, and discovered a renewed sense of peace within myself. The future remained uncertain, I didn't know what it would bring, but I was ready to meet it with a heart that had been tested, shaped, and ultimately strengthened. Moving forward wasn't about forgetting the cracks or the moments of doubt. It was about walking into life fully aware, fully alive, and fully myself. And in that quiet realization, I found the most precious truth of all: love is not only something we give to others, it's something we must cultivate within ourselves first. And with that love, I was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that no matter the storms, I could carry my own heart safely through them. As the days passed, a quiet peace began to settle over me, a gentle understanding that life, with all its unpredictability, was still unfolding in ways I could not control, and yet, I could navigate it with grace. I found myself reflecting often, thinking about the journey I had been through, the heartbreak, the moments of doubt, the public display that had shaken my very core. Each memory, whether tender or painful, had left a mark, shaping me into someone more resilient, more self-aware, more in tune with the truth of her own heart. I realized that love is not a simple line from one heart to another. It is layered, complex, sometimes messy, but always transformative. It teaches you about patience, about courage, about the capacity to forgive and yet maintain dignity. I thought about him, my husband, and all the ways he had both nurtured and challenged me. I acknowledged that while our story had tested me, it had also reminded me of my own strength, the quiet power I had carried within me all along, even when I felt powerless. In those moments of reflection, I understood that moving forward didn't mean erasing the past. It didn't mean pretending the pain hadn't existed, or that the heartbreak hadn't left its fingerprints on my soul. It meant accepting everything, the love, the loss, the lessons, and carrying them with me into the next chapter of my life. I began to see that life's beauty often lies in this very complexity, the ability to feel deeply, to experience fully, and still rise, still move forward. Still believe in tomorrow. And so I began to create new memories, small acts of joy that reminded me of my own presence in the world. Morning walks, laughter with friends, quiet evenings spent reflecting or simply breathing in the calm around me. I allowed myself to hope. Again, not recklessly, but gently, like sunlight breaking through clouds after a long storm. I nurtured my own heart, discovering that self-love and acceptance are not just comforts, they are the foundation of every meaningful connection we allow into our lives. Looking back, I realized something vital: heartbreak and clarity often come hand in hand. When the illusions fall away, what remains is raw truth. And in that truth, there is freedom. Freedom to love authentically, freedom to honor your own worth. Freedom to walk away from what diminishes you and toward what uplifts you. I discovered that courage isn't only in confrontation or grand gestures, it's in quiet acceptance, in the gentle reclaiming of your own heart, and in the decision to embrace life fully, no matter how fragile it may seem. As I close this chapter, I feel a gentle warmth in my chest. There is still a story to tell, still a journey ahead, but now I carry it with a heart strengthened by experience, illuminated by clarity, and open to the unexpected joys that await. Life will always challenge me, love will always surprise me. But I am ready. I am whole. And I am learning to walk forward with grace, carrying every lesson, every heartbreak, and every tender memory as proof that I survived, I grew, and I loved deeply. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Remember, each story in the Untold Love is a reminder that even in heartbreak, there is hope, and even in endings, there is a beginning. Our next story will take you deeper into love, secrets, and revelations, where hearts are tested, and courage is discovered in the most unexpected ways.